Well, hey. Welcome to the another edition of Brains and Baubles Live. I'm your host, author, professor, and emotional empowerment coach, Davina Dandridge. And each week I come here and I share with my life, or my guests share their emotional intelligence journey. And when I tell you, it runs the gambit. It doesn't matter where you're from. It doesn't matter how old you are. It doesn't matter your race. It doesn't matter your economic status. Nothing matters when it comes to your emotional health. Everyone needs to work on this. And my philosophy is that if you want the life that you desire, if you want happiness in your life, then you got to work on it. And I mean, it starts with your emotions, because if your emotions are all over the place, how are you going to manage going to school? How are you going to manage a new relationship with somebody, getting to know somebody, becoming vulnerable? When I tell you this is for everybody, it is for everybody. But my next guest is so special to me. And I say this about every guest because the way that I'm starting this out is I am embracing and I am talking to people that I know and love who exhibit emotional intelligence traits in everything that they do in their lives. And they have a story to tell, the way that they got there, how they manage their whatever they're going through in life, and how they're looking for the desired life and seeking it, right? They're dreaming it. They're planning it, they're putting action to it, but most of all, they have their emotions in check so they can do what they need to do. So my next guest, I met when she was 4 years old. Her mother and I became quick, fast friends and sisters for life. So in reality, I have one biological sister and a host of other sisters who I embrace and love. And today, this young woman has overcome generational hurdles. And we're going to talk about exactly what I mean. She's overcome those myths that we ascribe to our lives. She's overcome where society says that she should be right now to do some tremendous things and to help other people. So without further ado, here is the beautiful, kind, happy, determined, focused Whitney Tarver. All right, we waiting on Whitney. Come on in, Whitney. Come on in, Whitney. Yay, this is so exciting for me. Whitney! Yes! Oh my, you know what? You couldn't hear what I said about you, honey, but
I couldn't. I'm sorry. No, I just got the volume to
no,
work.
you're fine. You're fine. You couldn't hear it because I didn't let you in yet.
Okay.
But what I said about you is that the whole purpose of my Brains and Baubles live program is to share stories from people who exhibit emotional intelligence in many aspects of their lives. And what I said about you is that you have overcome generational hurdles, which we're going to talk about in detail, but you're also beat the standard for what society says you should be, where you should be, what you should be thinking about, and what you should be doing. But what you are doing is sharing your story in such a dynamic way that it can't help but be a benefit and a blessing to other people who are going through something similar and don't have anybody to talk to or don't know what to do. So Whitney, oh my gosh, you were 4 years old when I met
I
you.
can't believe it.
The only thing that I remember are these big old eyes and a beautiful smile. How are you, my dear?
I'm doing good. This has just like warmed my soul, just being able to be here. It's surreal. It's surreal. I'm excited. I'm really excited about the next chapter of my life, you
Good.
know, with spring and COVID, doing COVID, but kind of in the backdrop.
Yep.
It's kind of like a revival for my soul, I guess you can
The
say.
anticipation is so
Yeah,
good. It's like I
yeah,
always say when there's something coming, like I feel something bubbling up inside,
yeah,
or
yeah,
like birth pains, if you will,
yeah,
because it's like
yeah.
you can't describe when you feel like you're about to take another step or another level in your life. And I
Mhm.
know when we were talking yesterday, and I didn't realize this until you said this, and we take for granted that online, on Facebook, Instagram, you can always find something that is for you. And don't get me wrong, there are a lot of things available for you if you're trying to go somewhere and do something. But what struck me is when you said, we were talking about, I kind of call it survivor's remorse. When you have broken certain generational curses, or you
Mhm.
have overcome something and you don't have anyone to talk to share what
Yeah.
those feelings are like.
Yeah.
And I think that, that brings up a good point. What do you do when you have all this weight on you because you somehow in a way feel responsible for friends, family, and other
Mhm.
people who could use your help,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
At the same time, boundaries are important. Before we get
Absolutely.
into the heavy stuff, Whitney, I want you to shed some light on all the one. I know you don't have to give me your whole biography, although I know it, but share some of the highlights of your life and why I say that this is such a tremendous triumph for you to be where you are, be a happy woman where you
Yes, a
are,
happy woman.
a
Yes.
happy woman, even after of overcoming obstacles.
Absolutely.
Would you share with the
Absolutely.
audience in a brief synopsis what I'm
Absolutely.
talking about?
Yes, yes. And that's a mission for me to be happy and to live my best life in joy, no matter what accomplishments I have or how much money I make. Joy is essential to really a good life, cultivating a great life. So I'm a first generation college graduate from originally from Detroit, Michigan. I'm
Oh,
the
what
oldest,
up, though?
313 in the house. Um, I'm the oldest of five, if you consider both siblings from both sides. Of course, I grew up in the house with my mother up until the age of 14. I was the oldest of those three, the three of us, myself, my brother, and my sister.
And your
And
brother is my godson.
yes, yes, yes.
Dennis,
And
we're praying for you. Thank you so much for your
absolutely,
service
for
and
service.
sacrifice. I love you.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you all know her as Davina Dandridge, but I know her as Auntie Bet.
Yeah.
And so she has just always been a part of my life, always just kind of showing me, I would say, you, Jenny, your family, my godmother, my fraternal grandmother, it was God always kind of placed key people in my life to allow me to see, all right, it's a different way. I remember going to Alvin Ailey.
Yes.
Yeah, I remember that. I remember going up to U of M Ann Arbor to visit Jenny, and
Yeah.
just knowing that, all right, these things are possible. Or people will say, "You're going to be the next Jenny. You're going to be the
Yeah.
next." And so I
And that was
held.
a compliment.
Oh, absolutely, it was
That
something
was a
to
compliment.
strive for in my life,
Mhm.
and so it was just always kind of this existing duality growing up. So at 14, that was when I experienced what I will call as an adverse childhood experience. So my mother, who was known as Superwoman to everyone, the family, I always say we always had at least five other people living with us because my mom took on the world.
The
My mom
biggest
took on the
heart
world.
and the biggest smile and
Yeah,
just a personality that
yeah,
we became fast friends just like that. And we were
absolutely.
inseparable for many years,
Yeah,
many years.
absolutely.
Uh-huh.
Absolutely. But one thing about that though, again, as this we talk about happy women or happy black women or whatever that might look like, or these different capes or different things that we have to wear or we have picked up,
Yeah.
whether we known it or not. One of those was being everything to everyone else except for herself and lacking really those boundaries to be able to
Yeah.
sustain herself and sustain her family. And so my mom had already dealt with a lot of her own trauma, early childhood adverse childhood experiences. And like so many of us, she never got the treatment or never got the help. She just kind of stuffed it down. And so
I
how
don't
it
even know that she could have really
yeah,
expressed
absolutely. Because
what,
it
like there
wasn't the
wasn't a
thing to
freedom to
do.
do that.
No, absolutely. And,
Uh-huh.
knowing kind of some of the pathologies from my family of origin, it wasn't, if anything, now how me and my mom show up, of course, she's my mother, but we kind of show up as woman to woman. And I kind of let her know, hey, you have a right to set these boundaries.
Yeah.
And if they don't like it, you can exit stage left because you have yourself, you have your children, or you have whoever, is on your team. But yeah, boundaries was unheard of. I'm like the boundary queen in my family. So
You gotta
before me, I
have
think boundaries were unheard of. And so
Mhm.
how it manifested, the early childhood trauma, just a lot of different things going on with my mom. It manifested as into substance abuse.
Okay.
At first, of course, like with substance abuse, no one thinks that, you're going to get hooked on something. And it started off as fun, or it started off as, let me, hey, cope through this,
Yeah.
cope with this situation or that situation. And next thing I know, the woman who I looked up to, the woman who kept me safe from the world, who I thought was going to keep me safe from the world, she was no longer able to be there. And so at 14, I had to make a really, really hard decision where I knew that my life trajectory was going to go in a different place if I, at 14 years old, didn't set a boundary with my mother, who was then in active addiction. And really, I was setting a boundary with my entire family of origin that, hey, I need to go live with my father, and I need to be in a safe household, and I need to continue my education. I went to Renaissance High School in Detroit, and
Yes.
I need to go on this path. And it was not an easy task.
Well, Whitney, let me just stop you for 1 second before we get further. Just to really set the stage, your mother was everything for everybody. There wasn't
Absolutely.
anything that she wouldn't do for anybody. And we met at work, and then she came and worked for my family business. And then
Mhm.
after that, it was on your family. I was at your house every
Yes,
day. We ate
yes,
dinner together every
yes.
day,
Holidays, everything.
holidays, everything. So, for me to see the transition in your life, I know your mother as someone who sacrificed everything for her children
Mhm,
and for her sisters and
mhm.
for your grandmother and
Yeah,
for other people as well,
yeah.
including myself.
Mhm.
So for us to first of all not be friends anymore just really devastated me because I was unaware. And
Yeah,
I said to you the other day, I said I was the last one to know anything.
yeah,
And it really broke my heart because I would have wanted to be there for you and your brother and sister.
yeah,
However, what you went through, while it is a sad story and something that you had to endure, what I recognize about you is that you didn't succumb to what was going on and give up on what your hopes and dreams were. Instead, you used it to fuel your motivation to do something bigger and to do something better. Now, you shared a story with me that you saw a relative who was
yeah,
passed out drunk,
yeah. I
and
was
that
gonna
made you
say,
decide to do something different.
yeah, and I was gonna say, so I made that choice at 14 to live with my dad, but I had already started making some choices, life choices, even before then when I started living with my dad my freshman year of high school. So for those who don't know, like Renaissance is one of the prominent
Yeah.
high schools in really Michigan, but especially in Detroit. It's a National Blue Ribbon school. And I knew in my mind if I went to Renaissance, I was gonna, go to college, I was gonna be successful, all these things. And I remember the summer before high school, I was probably 13 or going, I had just turned 14, maybe, or about to turn 14.
Mm-hmm.
I had read an article that said,
Look at you
alcohol.
reading something that
Like,
wasn't assigned.
reading is fundamental.
See, go ahead, Whitney.
I remember reading the article. I was like 13, and it said that drinking alcohol kills brain cells. And so one dynamic or one part of the culture of my family of origin was, it was kind of like a party. It was, in a sense, it was a party atmosphere. And
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
a lot of times, the adults would give the children alcohol,
mm.
and whether it was in the form of Jello shots or whatnot. And so it was a norm. It was a normal thing in my family, even at 13, to drink.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
I remember drinking at like Absolute Vodka, again,
Oh
shots and
gosh.
yeah, beer, different things like that. And family would just give it to us, or, I never had to sneak it or anything of that nature. It was something that they would just kind of give to us or kind of push on us. And I remember when I was 13 going into high school and reading that article, and it said that your brain cells can die from drinking alcohol. I said, I remember looking around at my environment, and I had a aunt who was staying with us. She was also in active addiction.
Okay.
She was staying with us, and she was passed out on the floor. And I remember just kind of looking at my
Was that
environment.
scary to see that?
Honestly, it was normal.
Oh, that's
So it was,
unfortunate that that would.
now looking back on it, it was
Mhm.
scary because I didn't know the severity of the situation I was in then.
Mhm.
Once I just set my eyes on college, I was tunnel. It was tunnel
Television.
vision. Yeah, but now looking back, yes, it was definitely scary. But in the middle of it, it was the norm. It was just normal.
What do you think it was that, like, I know that
Kind of
situation
set me apart.
triggered something in you, but even beyond that, so you had to, as much as you love your mom, your brother, and your
Yeah,
sister, you had to separate yourself to recognize that, hey, if I'm going to do what I need to do, I have to be separate. And so while you are, and I saw you in high school, I've gone to your dance
I
recitals,
know. I know.
and to have that separation, what did it feel like? Did it feel like, hey, I'm abandoning, am I, or could you separate yourself and look at the long term and just kind of not, you can't not care,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
you
yeah,
have to brace yourself in a certain way. What did you
yeah,
do to say, okay, it's okay for me to make myself a priority for what I
yeah,
want my future to be like, because you couldn't do anything for what was happening.
yeah.
So explain.
I didn't realize how isolating it was going to be. I knew I was going to be set apart. And the funny thing is, I had already been set apart in so many ways. I remember Uncle Marvin, um, when I was like probably like 12. It was me, my cousin, and one of my god sisters at the time, and we were doing something. I don't know what we were doing. It was something like caddy or something. And I remember him sitting me down and talking to me saying I shouldn't do this. And I was like, well, why are you talking to me? Why aren't you talking to them too? And he said, because you're different.
Hmm.
And I was like, oh, okay. And so even like when my cousin Lionel would say, you're going to be the next Jenny. You're going to be the next Jenny. And again, Jenny was like an A+ student. She was like straight laced. And I was like,
Yeah.
okay, this is
She was
something
still
that,
straight laced, but she still went
yeah,
out.
she
She
was
still
nice. She was
dressed. She
lovely.
was still
But it was something that, okay, this is something that I can aspire to. And
right.
so these different people were put in different notions into my head that, okay, you can be something more. There's something
Hmm.
else in you. And so when I was 13, 14 years old and I had to make that decision, I would say, I think me being the oldest, and I'm a counselor by trade. Adlerian theory is one of my favorite theories to focus on because
Okay.
it looks at the age or birth order and how that forms personality development and all these different things. And so,
I need to read up
yeah,
on that. That's very interesting.
yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely. Adlerian theory. And so I definitely think that me being the eldest and my brother, it was kind of like a pseudo parent role. In my head, it was like, okay, I need to be a positive role model for him because I have to protect him. I have to protect
Yeah.
him. But it was extremely, extremely isolating when I had to make the decision to live with my father. Because when I was still living with my mom, it was like I was kind of put on a pedestal, but then I was kind of in between both worlds still.
Yeah.
But when I physically
Yeah.
separated myself, my mom's addiction escalated, and I physically separated myself. That's when attacks came. I would just have family members, especially my family of origin, just be really, really nasty to me.
Change
Just
is hard. It's not just hard for
absolutely,
the person making the change, but it's
yeah,
hard for the people
yeah,
who are accustomed to
yeah,
you being there or being a certain type of way.
yeah.
When we were talking yesterday, you know, setting up the boundaries that you were talking
Mhm.
about. I posted something about boundaries very recently, and it's like, boundaries are for you. It's for you
Absolutely.
to make sure that your emotions are intact, that you can stay focused, stay on the track that you're going. A
Mhm.
lot of people feel like boundaries are you doing something to them.
Yeah, yeah.
Now, it's okay for someone not to agree with the boundaries, but again, accept you as a person who
Mhm.
knows what you want to do. But it doesn't
Mhm.
always feel good at
No,
all.
because they feel like it's an attack on them or who they are, but I can still love you from a distance. And I think at some point now I can vocalize it, but I think that I knew it in my heart then, but I wasn't able to vocalize it. I knew that if I stayed on the path or, chose some of the behaviors or pathologies that a lot of people in my family of origin chose versus, going down a different path, I knew that there was going to be a price to pay either way. Again, I couldn't vocalize it then, but I knew it was going to be a price to pay. And I wasn't willing to pay that price. I wasn't, I would look around and it felt like an imitation of life. That's what it felt like. It felt like an imitation of life. I saw you, I saw my godmother, I saw my teachers. My education has been like one of the cornerstones of just my life. Cultivating different life.
But you know what? You all, and I'm sorry to digress and jump all the way back to the beginning. And this is for anybody out there who has had negative words spoken over their abilities or what their possibilities are, even from the people that you trust to know. There is something within us where we have to be self-aware to really find out who we are and what makes us tick, to embolden us to really face challenges in a different way. And I was jumping back to, we talked about, I remember, because I've known you since before kindergarten, I was ticked. I was ready to go up to the school because the teacher was saying that you needed, what exactly? She said you had.
And what it was, we were talking about it yesterday. I said that really when you think about just people of African diaspora, or especially African Americans, and everything that we've went through, Jim Crow, all these different things. When you look at education, when you look at language, whether it's colloquialisms or whatnot, there's a different way of talking, a different way of being, or a blackness to it, if you can say. But in addition to that, there can also be a lot of stereotyping, a lot of judgment as well. And so growing up, 4 or 5 years old, I spoke the words how I interpreted the words, how I heard around me. My maternal grandmother, she was 15, 16 when she dropped out of high school from Macon, Georgia, because when she got pregnant, back then you couldn't continue on with your education. So, we know that language, it's a pathway to a different world. And so I spoke how the words, I interpreted the words around me. And so they wanted to put me in like special education. Again, I am in the field. I'm a disability specialist. I'm licensed, certified rehab counselor, mental health, substance abuse counselor. So I'm literally
not only that, what's the position at your job?
So I am program chair for human services and social work in the substance abuse certificate program at a local community college in North Carolina, community college system.
That's a long way from special education. And, and that's not to say someone in special education can't achieve great goals, but we were going to that stereotype. Once that's placed on you, that follows you.
You're literally tracked in a sense. And that's, I talk, even students that I've helped or assisted in that role, I'll talk to them about advocacy and self-actualization, because they have to take those labels off and they have to put their own identity on. And it wasn't like, Whitney's real smart, but we want to give her this assistance. But it was kind of like they were just kind of.
And your parents fought for that not to happen.
And my mom
fought for that not to happen.
As imperfect as my mom is, my grandfather said it best. My paternal grandfather said it best. He said, "Your mother has redeeming qualities about herself." I was
Absolutely.
Like, she has redeeming qualities. I learned how to work hard from her. My work ethic is a direct example of hers. My personality.
Giving.
Giving.
Not just money, but I've seen her cook for people. I've seen her just be kind, go work in somebody's house to help them. Whatever it is, giving people a ride, those type of things can help someone in their lives. But you've taken on, I know your family, I know your uncles, your aunts, your grandmothers, you have the best of both sides of your family all in one. And the reason why I say that is because it is difficult to be isolated, to be singled out and still stay on the course. and remain happy with a good attitude.
Absolutely. And I think with all that, again, my mom was advocating for me early on and said, no, my daughter, she might need some additional speech classes or whatnot. But no, I believe in my daughter, and my daughter is college bound. And so after that, I started believing in myself. My teachers like me. I like my teachers. And I was like, oh, I'm good at this.
Yeah.
I always say I wasn't good at art, or I wasn't good. I didn't have a special talent. I always say my special talent was my personality and my work ethic. So
Yeah.
I was like, right, I'm going to go with this. And so when things did get hard, I remember focusing down. I actually remember being in seventh grade. This was my boyfriend at the time. I won't say his name in case he's going to remember this though. But we were in seventh grade and we were on the phone. He said, Whitney, do you think we're going to make it? Like, are we going to be like high school sweethearts?
Oh my goodness.
And I literally said to him, no. I said, no. I said, I'm going to be too focused on maintaining my 4.0, being valedictorian, and getting into Renaissance and getting a scholarship to college. And he said, oh, and we were 13. And then when I say I did all that, I literally did everything I said I was going to do.
That's right.
And he became successful in his own right as well. He's married. He has a great family. But it was funny. At 13, I was like, oh, no, this is what I'm doing with my life. I'm going to college. People around me said, I'm capable of going to college. I'm going to college. And even when I got my scholarship, I didn't know what was going to happen. My mom was in active addiction. I wasn't able to really see my brother and my sister, my family of origin. It was just kind of like really sporadic.
Before we run out of time, Whitney, I want to talk about that. I remember when you were in college and undergrad and you would bring your mom to the college and she would share her story.
Yes.
What group was that she was sharing her story with?
So it was a women's group, Precious Stones. It was a women's group called a Women's Enrichment Group. And we really focused on those hard topics with relationships and self-love and self-care. And so one of the themes of it was Woman, Thou Art Loose.
Okay.
And we talked about, my mom actually shared some of her early childhood abuse and talked about, how she didn't take care of herself and her not taking care of herself, how it kind of led her down the path of coping through substance abuse. And we literally had like these bags. We would put like big books and bricks in them. And I would have the different girls walk around and say like, how does this feel to hold this? And like, what can we do to go ahead and release that? And so we would use positive affirmations and different things like that. So it's always been in me to help. And if I can't share my story, if I'm not doing what I'm supposed to do here on earth, then, or if I'm just living in my own little element, existing, then I haven't done the work that God wants me to do. And honestly, I feel like being happy is a choice, but every day I wake up, I said, I'm going to live this life out. Like I'm not letting this time get away from me. I always say I'm not going out like that. I'm not going out like that. So I'm not going to let life be the best of me. I'm going to come out on top.
And look, you are on top, but there's still more and more and more to go. So before we run out of time, I wish we had an hour.
I know.
We're gonna have to do this again. I really want to talk about your philosophy on generations and how they impact your life. I really want to get into that. But let me find out more. What right now is an emotional trait that you or skill that you want to develop, or something that you feel like you want to work on personally to help you be a more emotionally intelligent person?
One thing that I have, and it's actually one of my goals for this year, of course, I'm a licensed substance abuse mental health counselor and disability counselor, but I always tell my students, I'm working on myself just like you all.
Absolutely.
And one thing that I found myself doing in the past was when someone triggers me or they like purposely push my button, reacting. And my goal is to no longer react. I can respond with due diligence but no longer reacting. And to me, that's a form of emotional regulation as well.
I call it, I created a system called the self-gut check. That's just that.
I like that. And,
I also say that if you practice emotional intelligence, and look, I have the best system to do it. It's simplified, it's for everybody. But hey, if you want to just study emotional intelligence on your own, that's cool. I'm talking to y'all out there. That's cool. But the thing about it is you have to learn, and it's something that you have to learn to become an emotional planner instead of a triggered responder. An emotional planner instead of a triggered responder, because you can't suck those words back in. You can't de-escalate really after the fact, because sometimes that hurt is already there. So that is a great trait to work on, because that helps you be more charismatic. You're already fantastic and charismatic, but I mean, when you can really regulate yourself in that way and decide when is the right time to react, how should we react? Should we table it for another time? Should I address it head on right now? All of those things, you know, are important, and that self-gut check will get you to it really quickly.
Yeah. And I love how you brought up the planning part, because literally I'll do that where if I know I'm going into a hostile environment or around people that can be hostile towards me, whether it's at work, family, whatever, I literally prepare how will I respond if they do certain things. And I had to do it this past Christmas. And I literally remember going to the bathroom, like giving myself a high five, like, yes, you did it. Yes. You responded, and I felt so powerful. And so I think that's such a good point, like that gut check, that
it's like, what am I doing? What am I feeling right now? Why am I feeling this way? If you can answer the why.
If we don't regulate ourselves, everyone else is pulling the strings.
We don't. So we're like a marionette. I'll be like a hip-hop marionette. Okay. What are you doing now, Whitney? Tell me what you're planning, your biggest dream or aspiration right now. I know it's something good. I know it's something great. What is it?
So what's on my list right now? So the market is looking a little bit better. So my goal, actually, I'm in North Carolina. I'm in Eastern North Carolina, and I'm actually planning to build own a home, or but at this point, it's actually cheaper in my area to build than to buy a home. And so I'm looking to build. I want it to be me and my fur baby. He's over here. He's been trying to hop up on the couch, and I've been like,
Bentley.
But I want something for me and my fur baby, and also something that my family can come and really just enjoy. So the next thing, my career has really been taking off. It's been 12 years since graduate school. So
I've been I can't believe 12 years since graduate school, and I'm only 30. Oh, are you 35? I'm only 40.
35.
See, now, but you still don't know how old I am. I knew it when she was 4, but I could have been 12. Whatever.
Yeah, right. And so one of the other things I want to do, I do want to get a certification like trauma specialty, and I want to go ahead and obtain my LLC, and I want to start an online virtual counseling counseling organization. And I have already been doing a lot of speaking engagements, doing a lot of research with the local university. I actually got my graduate degree from East Carolina University. I did research for National Disability Employment Awareness Month in October on intersectionality of disability, racism, and employment. And so in that, I was talking about generational trauma and how that can literally show up as racialized or post-traumatic racialized trauma, and what it can do to somebody. How can it impact long-term health and employment goals and all those things? But my goal right now, I'm really focused on, again, obtaining that LLC, a new home. I've been working on my own health. I went paleo. I was telling you yesterday, I went paleo. I'm trying to knock out all these generational pathologies. I said, no, it stops with me.
It stops right here.
Yeah, my fraternal grandmother passed away of diabetes at 63. And I said, you know what? I'm going to take care of myself. And so in the last 8 months, I've lost 30 pounds. I'm paleo now.
I can see it in your cheeks.
Thank you.
Cheekbones are popping.
Thank you. I whip it up in the kitchen all the time. With different fun foods. And so after that, in the next chapter, in the next probably like 4 years, I would love to work on obtaining my PhD. And really, I want to focus on my research. Our interests are generational trauma. And one component I want to bring into it now is how healing, different pathways of healing and nutrition, how can that help with the healing part as well?
Wow, that's something we definitely need to talk about. Well, Whitney, I wish we had more time. Unfortunately,
we'll have to do this again.
We're going to have to do it again. And we're going to have to, like people always say, stay in touch. And I really mean that. I really mean that. Well, listen, I'm sure you guys got a lot from this conversation today. If there's a certain topic you want to talk about, let me know. I mean, these are conversations that I'm willing to have. I want to give the gift of knowledge for emotional intelligence because it's not talked about in this way, and we all need it so very much. Even me, I still am working on it. So listen, catch me next Tuesday, 6 o'clock on Instagram Live, on Facebook Live, and on YouTube. All right. Till next time. Bye, Whitney.
Bye.